Financial disclaimer. The information provided in this stream is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional financial or investment advice. We are not licensed financial advisors, and the content presented here is based on our personal opinions and experiences. Investing in stocks and other financial instruments involves risk, including the potential loss of capital. Any investment decisions you make are solely your own responsibility, and you should conduct your own research and consult with a qualified financial professional before making any investment choices. The content we share on this stream may not be accurate, complete, or up to date. Market conditions and financial regulations can change rapidly, and we cannot guarantee the accuracy or reliability of the information presented. We do not endorse or promote any specific stocks, companies, or investment strategies. Any actions you take based on the content of this stream are at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses or damages that may occur as a result. Always remember that past performance is not indicative of future results, and no investment is guaranteed to be profitable. Make informed decisions and consider your risk tolerance before investing any funds. By accessing and using this stream, you acknowledge and agree that we are not responsible for any investment decisions you make as a result of the content presented. You are encouraged to seek advice from qualified financial professionals for personalized guidance. Please invest responsibly, and only with money you can afford to lose.
Hey man, just found the next guaranteed multi-bagger.
Hey man, you found another one? What is it this time?
Come check this out.
Okay, next please. How can I help you, young man?
We want to go in on EJH. We love a company where the customers primarily include individuals and families, and this has a hanging big pattern from Minardino.
Well, that's fantastic. A really smart decision, young man. We can put that checked and it's gone.
Hey everybody, welcome to Laughing Stock. How are you, Dane? We haven't been on for a while now, so what's going on?
Hey man, how's it going? It's been okay. I mean, the markets are tough to trade in right now, so it's not really a super exciting period, which isn't the reason we've been off, but it doesn't, necessarily change everything either.
No,
I actually had an okay week, but other than that, the past few weeks are slight losses. I haven't done a ton of trading. Some weeks I just done nothing, so it really just depends on the week. But until this whole thing kind of gets settled, it's really hard to say where we're going here.
Yeah, I agree. I've done the same. Actually, I've done nothing this week. I've also been a bit lazy, and I didn't even do the screens, which is probably a mistake because I want to keep my finger on the pulse. But I've just been diving into some other projects, which has also been, good for me. And these are projects that I'm trying to improve my workflow eventually. So it is connected with my strategy and everything. So I just spent some time doing that instead, and took my mind a little bit off the markets this week, to be honest.
Yeah, I think there's something to say in terms of what do you call it? Like it's not to say obviously you shouldn't be screening and kind of keeping up on things, but at the same time too, it also kind of prevents you from over trading in this period or doing anything stupid or even trading at all if that's like your mentality. So I kind of get what you're saying.
Yeah, I've just been I've decided to, I think it was a guy called Christian Flanners who said, try to limit your monthly drawdown to 5%. And I'm not anywhere near 5% drawdown so far this year, but I'm just trying, like you said, what I also experience if I do the screens and I follow every day and I find a setup, it's very tempting to take it because you want to, you want to outperform. You want to take the few ones that are gonna work, and then the odds are just against you. So usually, what I have seen is I get stopped out, or even it works on day one and then you get stopped on day two. So it's just a break-even trade, and slowly that would just chop you up. I think if you don't take your foot off the pedal a little bit in these times. So yeah, I've just tried to be disciplined, but I'm not gonna continue to not screen because I want to get back to. I need to get back to screening to spot potential leaders for the future and just check which stocks are moving and building, relative strength, which is very important moving forward, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I don't know, it's kind of strange. I know this is, I know macro is tough to really follow and be any kind of way of too specific on it. But the one thing that like kind of stands out with me is we've had an incredible amount of selling occur in the past, month and a half, let's give it, or at least since the end of January. And if you look, the selling is actually outpacing the selling that happened during the Trump tantrums with the tariffs or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And that's not my phrase, obviously. That's just what they call it. So I'll stick with that. But like we're at the 200 MA for the comp or for the NASDAQ. And with all that overselling, the fact that it hasn't broken, it just makes me think that everyone's kind of hesitant to take this too seriously in terms of how long this is going to last. And I think it's almost dictated by the fact that Trump is so focused or seems to be so focused on making sure that the stock market doesn't collapse under him that he'll bend quite a bit to make sure that it doesn't totally break again. So I think everyone's just hesitant because this week he could say we're not going to do anything, and the next week we're out of there, or in the exact opposite, we're putting troops down. So it's so hard to predict. So I think everyone's just hesitant until like we get like some kind of firm news on where things are at, and I think you watch like a stock like Battalion and it's up 20%, then down 20%, then up 20%. I mean, that just goes to show you that like everyone's following that news like hyperly, actively. And we just don't know. There's no give or take. There's nothing to say. If you look at insider buying right now, there's actually a shitload of it. So it goes to show me that even on this pullback, there's a lot of people out there who are focused on their companies and saying like, regardless of what happens with that, we're still investing. We still think it's a good period. Not that insider buying is like, some kind of like, given on how the markets are going to react. But if it was truly dropping, you would, I've seen it in the past, it pulls back. The amount of insider buying that occurs just drops, like, and there's a huge swath in the last week of people buying and some quite substantial in terms of the amount. And the other thing too is like even on Friday's not our lowest low. So it held above that. So it kind of shows me like on Monday, like we have to see like if we break through that low, which I think was on, or at least this is the way I'm looking at it. On March 9th, I think the lowest I saw the NASDAQ index was 22,061. If it breaks that point, then I start to think, okay, like it's hard to say that anyone's supporting anything at this point. And then the next previous low is way back in, what do you call it? The 21st of November.
Yeah.
It's 21,898. So, those are the last lines of support. If those start to go, then yeah, I think this is going to sell off. And that's the other thing too, is, this whole, if not enough people are buying right now, then eventually this distribution just kind of overtakes it. And then when there's truly no one to like, buy the dip, that's when you'll watch it collapse. So I'm very curious to see on Monday more so where everything kind of ends up. I'm like hesitant to say here we're gonna tank or at least have a more serious correction. But who knows? It's really tough to say. And there's a lot going on in the macro environment. The Fed being changed and who's going to be taking over. Everything's got to get confirmed. Inflation and the way it's measured is all over the place. It's tough to say. And I think more importantly, what do you call it? I would be hesitant to do a ton right now, just because it's so based on whatever a few party people are doing. Trump has such a strong say, and then depending on Iran's response and other countries stepping in and deciding that they want to change things, like That's really what's driving the sentiment right now.
And predictable that because all of a sudden, I don't know if you know this, Dane, but they threw some hand grenades at the USA embassy here in my country.
Well,
As
that's
a
just
response.
psychos.
Yeah, but it was a response for war, you know. So
Right. Well,
things can
I mean,
happen throughout the world that makes that escalate things as well, you know. So it's just very hard to read into anything. And if you look at the Nasdaq and all the indexes, if you call it like from the beginning of November, we have gone sideways, which is almost 6 months now, almost half a year going sideways. So, like you said, with the support, if it might not drop down below, but it can move, it can go up again and just continue this sideways move for a longer time period. That has happened in the past. You're not necessarily going to see like a big drop or something, which is to me, you know, way more annoying because I find it very hard to do anything in this sideways move. And if you
right.
look at my other one with the indicator on, it's the background now is just black, which means Kulamagi said this in this stream with this indicator. Just don't do anything when this is black. And you know, him teaching on his streams, he's trying to make it very simple. So this is one advice I've just taken from him. I'm not doing anything when this is black, and it turns black based on the moving averages and stuff like that, you know. So there is some system behind it.
Yeah. No. And I don't think it's the wrong approach. And it's tough to say. You know, the market's still, you know, in terms of you know, ratios, it's still a pretty strong market. You know, even though things have pulled back, it's not anything crazy. You know, indexes are barely down from all-time highs. So
Yeah, they are.
I'm not
Like you
like
said,
super bullish in any one direction.
Trump wants to. This is very important for Trump. It seems like it has been so far. And I wonder, Dan, when you said that earlier, have you seen that presidential election cycle chart that Minarvini posted a little bit in the beginning? Because the market seemed to follow it 100%. Have you seen some updates on that?
I actually haven't looked at it, but I know what you're saying. I
That would be
gotta just take a
interesting.
peek at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that chart holds for a lot of reasons. You know, I think nobody wants to see the stock market collapse underneath themselves. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of a weakness of, you know, American markets and the president feeling like they're in control of certain things. So I think the reason why that chart holds a lot is because at this point, you know, certain policies and stuff that different presidents have done, this is where the like their effect is seen, and then, you know, the government tries to do what they can to uphold these things. So that's why you see the same pattern in the same time frames a lot for it. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Like, we talked about before the streams that at least I was saying I think if I understood it better right now, I probably would have switched my focus over to EPs rather than breakouts.
Yeah, and I mean EPs, just because of, you know, fundamental reasons, pretty much will work in any market, even ugly markets. If something's truly has something going in there and the news is getting out, I mean, people will buy that stock. I mean, you know, your odds of catching it are super low just because there's very few and far in between, and there's so many people that, you know, are in so many ways to watch the news now that, like, you know, to be the first one up on it, you might have to actually build like an AI program that'd be able to sort that out for you.
Yeah. And
Right.
we went through some examples of the stream, like EPs that has looked good. Alto was one of them, and you know, There are other tickers that also you can see that has maybe started a bigger move in this time
Mhm.
period. Imagine now then if we get a clear breakout on the market within the next month or so, these stocks would probably fly, you know.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, that's why I don't worry too much about right now. I'm curious, you know, I have a hard time thinking that in any way it's beneficial to put ground troops on the floor in Iran. And the reason why I say that, or Iran, however you want to say it, just because I don't know what that's going to accomplish. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that would be really, really risky. And regardless of, and I know you can't take Trump's word totally, because he already said that he doesn't want any kind of long wars and that he's not going to start wars, and here we are on possibly starting a war.
yeah,
And I don't know if he thinks that he can control this, kind of like how the Venezuelan situation went, because that was such a quick operation that seemed to work in his favor. So I don't know if he was thinking he'd be able to pull that off, or what. And it's always hard to say, because we don't really know what Israel's strategic planning is, and what the effect is in convincing the United States or anybody in the government to do something that benefits them. And there's people who argue that they pushed for the attack, and based on the way the attack was going to work, Trump kind of got strong armed into having to make a move. Just militarily, it made sense to support them. um and I've seen it argued every possible way, but my point being is, I don't think any of that though leads to the point that I think he's going to do something drastic. And I don't know what the benefit is. Yes, we killed their leader, and now the son steps in. So
yeah,
number one, this one of the problems with doing this kind of thing is, it is incredible that you can have the surgical precision of taking out a leader like that. And but what is the response to this? And in the long run, I think everybody in the world kind of wants this not to become a thing. It doesn't really benefit anyone besides, I mean, the people of Iran, being free obviously is something that's worth fighting for. But the people there also have to make that choice. That's their choice. Like, if they want to take this opportunity now to change things, I feel like that's their opportunity. So I don't know. I wonder what the benefit, the long-term goal is to get, obviously getting involved in any kind of war like this is terrible. This is not what the United States needs. I I'd argue that the initial attack, I don't know. And the other thing too is, we had that initial attack, and sorry to turn this into like a macro political talk, but the initial attack when they blew up the nuclear enriching facilities and stuff underground, or whatever they want to call it, like, how successful was that? Maybe they got intel that they didn't finish the job, and this was what this is. I don't know. But my point being is, I think you can kind of see what I'm saying in the stock market, as in everyone's kind of like let's see where this goes before we either put the foot on the pedal back again, or where you'll actually see the fact that now there's just not enough buying because of the uncertainty, and the market starts to tank because of that.
yeah.
It'd be that slow drip down here, but I
Yeah,
don't
it
know. I
could
don't
be
see
right.
too much of a correction from this. If you had to ask me if I was betting, I would say that this ends sooner than later. But
Yeah,
it's so hard to say, and that's why I don't bet.
but also, like I said, though, we are in the almost 6 months on a sideways move, so it has been going on for a while as well.
Yeah, and obviously there's something to say there too. But at the peak there, we also had a pretty strong move. We had that pullback. Talking from April all the way there. I mean,
Yeah,
that's just a strong recovery move. And then the other thing too is, when everything's bullish and you have a strong recovery move, it always kind of gets overdone anyways, because there's so much buying, and it's kind of the opposite. Like, nobody wants to stop buying, because every time something dips, people are putting their money in. And it just keeps moving higher. So I think it's kind of the same issue, just in the other direction, where it presses so high, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, wait, why are we still buying? Like, everything's like, valued, incredibly high, and then all of a sudden, probably funds start to run out. Everyone's kind of fully invested, and then at that point, you just start to see returns slide. So now it's playing around in that sideways area where everyone's trying to outperform each other. It's the money's all out there, the money's all invested, but now how can you move it around to squeak out extra returns? And that's where I feel like the sideways markets come in.
Yeah, maybe we will get some answers this coming week, because like you said earlier, they are just below the 200-day moving average now. And I also saw like earlier, I think it was this week, that it gapped down, right, 3 days in a row, but then it recovered. It's just like weird moves all the day. Every day is like some weird moves. Very hard to navigate. I think from what I saw, I think you will be safer if you don't do anything at the opening hours right now, because you get a lot of like fake outs or whatever they call them. Like they seem to go really well, and then they pull back like hard, and it comes back and even turns negative. So it's tricky.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think it's everybody's kind of in that mentality where they're like, okay, this is going to end and let's get right back up to our highs. And then the next day, the news, that news doesn't really come. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, maybe this is going to last longer.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is, I mean, the shock of, increasing oil, especially the amount that it's went up in such a short amount of time. I mean, as soon as that starts to get longer priced into things, I mean, that's a huge contraction in economics. So, it just costs so much money to ship everything now. And so that will increase inflation. So I have a hard time thinking that it's not going to matter. So, if anything, if you ask me, if I had to bet, I would say that this isn't going to last. And the two reasons I say that, number one, is because of the economic impact of that. And number two, more importantly, Trump needs to win the midterms. Like that's coming up. And if he's not in the right position to win that, I mean, that's the last 2 years of his presidency are going to be just totally sidelined by Democrats, because that's just the way our politics work here. So in his best interest, I can't picture him not trying to win those midterms by getting into a better position than how it looks right now.
Yeah. I can only speak for myself here, but that I feel like that's a point that we are kind of missing where I am. Like I haven't thought about that until you mentioned it a few days ago to me. Because I wasn't even aware that that's coming up. But I guess if you follow the politics over there, you would of course be aware. But I think people in general, they don't consider it too much. But I think it's a great point. It's hard for him also to navigate right now, because maybe he did get a little bit tricked, or maybe forced, or whatever it was, and now it's he made himself in a position where that's maybe going to be a bit more hard for him to win that midterm election, and he needs to make some adjustments. But in general, though, it's very hard to say how he thinks and how he moves.
Yeah, and I think there's a bit of an alienation factor that gets put in here. If you look at the end of Trump's first presidency, right towards the very end of his presidency, when when he was going out, the Republican Party kind of turned on him. And I think it was because, Trump has his own ideas and he doesn't necessarily follow the grain. And now you could see something like that, because if the Republican Party, for instance, knows that there's 2 years left, I could picture a bunch of people in that party who don't necessarily always agree with Trump. Trump does have his little cabinet and like his group that really follow and work with him. Yeah. But the other chunk of the Republicans are still just the old typical, kind of Republican Party. And if they start to see him slip in the midterms, and now all of a sudden we're going to have 2 years where the check and balances are going to just eliminate his power. I know he takes, huge advantage of the executive order, but I just see that power slowly slip away if he loses the midterms. There's so many other obstacles now that get set up against him that he won't have the power he does. And once again, I think the other side then is the Republicans start to be like, all right, well, you didn't make the good judgment call there. You got us into a conflict that totally changed our outlook at midterms and kind of ruined the last 2 years here. I think the Republican Party would also start to step back from him. So
have you seen like some of his close companions have turned around a little bit on him?
Yeah, well, he alienates himself, and this is a huge example. I mean, one of the things he really ran on was the fact that he wouldn't get us into a war. So
and he has been speaking about this peace prize all the time, right?
Yes, and we were supposed to be out of the conflict in both, I don't know if we're not really in the conflict in Gaza, but it was supposed to be, pretty much ended by now, which it's kind of ended just in the fact that there's not really they just kind of dominate that area. Israel has just been in control. So that one kind of just fizzled out just because there's no enemy left. It's all small stuff. And then when you talk about oh my God, I can't think of what is Russia?
Ukraine.
Oh my God, Ukraine. Thank you. I keep thinking the word uranium. Ukraine. They're at the point that Ukraine's supported by us. That war gets supported by our, money flowing into that war. If he wanted to end that, he could end it. I mean, we could end that war at any point, and obviously not to the benefit of Ukraine. But this was something that he argued we were going to get out of. But I think a lot of that sounds good on paper, and then you get into the real thing there, and the military guys come in and they start explaining the situation and the consequences of some of these things happening, and it's not so easy of a decision.
Spoke about that. That would be easy for him. He got elected. He has failed miserably in what he promised in that conflict. And like you said, of course, it's not easy. Like you can't just. No one has the power to just end that within a week. Like I think that's what he promised or something, right?
Yeah, and I think from his mentality, he thought with the tariffs he was going to have a lot more control. Yeah, and just the backlash that creates on a world scale as well as here at home.
I heard now that he had opened up again to trade more with Russia. Have you heard that?
Honestly, I haven't, but I also don't pay super close attention. I don't really believe a lot of any of the news. I honestly think everybody's stories now are so biased. It's gotten so bad that it's really hard to hear any point of view. There's a few people I listen to, that I respect, and they're usually third party that are individual and don't really have an affiliation with either party, and they try to give more centric news. So I'll listen to those, but if they're not really covering it, I hear things, but I don't care because everyone wants to paint a picture. So it's tough to say on I don't know. I don't know if we're trading with Russia, if that's actually happening or not, or in what extent that is.
They talked about it like that was a step back because they felt you should put more pressure on Russia, not ease up on it. So I think it's an actual thing that is going on.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. As you just said, it's one of those things that we shouldn't be doing. But does that worsen the war? Are we increasing the length of the war by continuing to be so staunch against them? You can say whatever you want. Obviously, Putin's one of the, a terrible person, and has caused unbelievable conflict across the world. But do the general Russian people deserve that? Do the people in Ukraine continue to deserve to fight? And there's so many positions you could take on these things and say why something's right or wrong. It's tough to say what is right or wrong. But in general, my whole point of all this is we're just trying to figure out where are things going. And just you pulling up the crude chart, I think that's a good point. you want to know really what's going on right now? Look at
Crazy
that
moves
chart
here. Yeah.
because
Look at this candle, and this is the oil futures. You don't see this, right? 9 of March, and you spoke about 9 of March also in the indices, right? That was a day that you noticed. So yeah, I think I saw a lot of traders that are 100 times better than me that shorted it up here on that day and probably made a lot of money.
yeah, because
So
that's a ridiculous move.
yeah,
But that's what I'm saying is if you really want to know how this conflict is going, you have to just watch that chart because investors are quick. They're good on, well, traders, I should say, are quick and they're going to react to news. And if you see that chart really start to pull back, this conflict's ending.
Yeah.
But right now you can see the sentiment is totally unsure. Most likely it's not ending, within like a few days. It's most likely going to go on for a few weeks here.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But like I said, I think that background, that midterm, I think that starts to put so much pressure against Trump. I think his cabinet that he's built, if you want to give Trump any kind of pat on the back for what he's done, his cabinet he built, I think is a group of relatively intelligent people. And regardless of how much he listens to them, that's one issue. I think that group is going to try to push him back on this. And it's up to him and a few other people that probably help him make these decisions to say we got to step back on this. But I really think he's going to get a lot of pressure from his team to say like we're going to put ourselves in a kind of an unbeatable position if we don't get out of this quickly.
Is it some talks over there that there's, in particular, maybe 1 or 2 people that he listens to like closely? Because sometimes it seems like he doesn't care about anyone.
No, it's not like that. He builds his cabinet in the States. When the president comes in, I mean, they probably appoint, I don't know, a couple hundred people into positions.
Yeah.
So that's considered like his team. And then he has a close cabinet, and that's probably like 20 individuals that all hold high positions and are
within that
supposed
group,
experts in those areas. What's up?
Yeah, within that group, has there been like some news like this is the guy Trump often leans towards for advice and stuff like that?
No, there's been nothing to state that. If anything, the criticism here and like where you see a lot of like the jokes and stuff are that they all are doing whatever he tells them to do, which I get what they're saying, but at the same time too, I think they're just, you have to have a cohesive team. Like it's for instance, it's like making fun of like a sports team saying that everyone follows their captain well, and that they're too stuck on their captain. I was like, well, I mean, it's a team effort, so it kind of makes sense that they're going to follow him. So yeah, sure, you can sit here and say like everyone's going to do exactly what he says, but at the same time, I don't think that's unreasonable. Like,
and that
you appoint
happens.
a cabinet because you want a bunch of people who are going to work with you. I think in his first administration, he picked the wrong people who didn't want to work with him and had different ideas. So he picked a cabinet of people with similar ideas as him. I don't think it's that weird.
Yeah, and probably not the first time that has happened with a U.S. president, right?
I would imagine every president, if you have any clue of what you're doing, you would pick a cabinet that's going to closely align with what your goals are.
Yeah. And that's not saying that you don't want any what do you call it, like counter arguments for stuff,
right?
Those two things are different.
Yeah, no, and obviously you want intelligent people that at least have your same ideology, but then at the same time are intelligent enough to tell you when you're what you're thinking or what we're currently doing is wrong.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like I said, I'm sorry, this is like a macro stream.
We didn't have so much stocks.
You go.
Yeah, we didn't have so much stocks to go through today because I think you took one or something this week, and I've done nothing. And there are big, decisive things going on in the world right now, so I think it's natural that it ends up a little bit with that focus here.
Yeah, no, I took HYMC on the day that it kind of on March 10th, and it only ended up 10% at the end of the day, which is kind of where I sold off at. I held it through. I was up 3% on it at one point, and according to my previous guidelines, I would have gotten out there. But I am trying something slightly different.
What was the
That
position
I've
size,
seen.
Dane?
30.
Yeah, cool.
So where I can't remember, I got in at like 42 something. So it ended up being almost just over a 1% gain for the day. So it wasn't bad, and obviously it made me outperform this week.
Yeah.
In a tough environment too. So I'm happy with it. But that's why I say, I keep my stop losses, limited. I actually used it was an intraday point. I'd have to look at the intraday chart on it to say where I got it. But it's not like I'm not trading. I'm just going slow. I'm keeping my stops really tight, and or I'm waiting until I buy at a point. That's one thing I'm focusing on now is instead of saying for instance, that I want to buy a stock because it's breaking out. I think of a point where I think it's a strong point of support, and I let it get down to that support level. And then that way, if it does drop, my risk is limited because I'm so close to where the support needs to be anyways. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I am looking at really strong stocks too. So like HYMC, I mean, if you look at that chart, it's a super strong stock. If I'm trading anything right now, it's got to be kind of one of those charts. It really needs to be that's stage 2 for sure. And I guess you could argue that HYMC right now is in like kind of a stage 3, stage 2, which, it's tough to say. Obviously, this whole trick of swing trading is when it gets to the next one that looks like it could turn into stage 3. Does it, or does it truly continue on as stage 2 and it's just another sideways move?
Yeah.
But what I've been focusing on when I look at something like this is then I go to gold and I look at gold, and gold to me looks like it's still setting up to break out.
Yeah, I was briefly touching, I showed this chart when we were speaking about the oil chart, but because the metals and gold and silver and platinum, all those, they had these rough period here. And if you look at the 3 here, at least gold is the only one who has been able to really build higher lows and push up again, and just surfing the 20-day here so far.
Right.
Whereas platinum and silver, they are now below the 10-day, 20-day, and 50-day here, and more or less a sideways move from this ugly day it had. So
Right.
gold still looks strong, which is kind of a little bit natural in this environment, right? So that's probably not a bad place to look for individual stocks right now either. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw something. It's not that like I said, I haven't done much this week, but I managed to do like one month gainers, my scan before the stream, and Coinbase showed up in that one. So I was just a bit curious to see, Coinbase with a move from the lows to where it is now, roughly 40%. And it's kind of setting up pretty nicely. It's well below the 200-day moving average if you care about that stuff. But 40%, maybe a little bit change in the volume profile here. I saw Circle. Oh, that's not the ticker. Hold on. I have it here. Circle there. Circle with a strong move after earnings, which outperformed as well. So I was thinking I should look more into these types of stocks and combine it with the general crypto market, which also have experienced like many positive days now in a row. If you look at the Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's still in the bottom here, moving sideways pretty much. But I wonder what the MicroStrategy, same, it's just something to keep an eye on, in my opinion, when a few of these companies starts to show up in the 1 month strength scans. It's interesting.
Yeah, and I think it was Vinny who had posted because he did a little bit of a dive on Bitcoin. Was saying that typically companies like Master will lead the Bitcoin move. They tend
Yeah.
to be just in front of Bitcoin actually making a move. So, or at least historically. So, if you did see Master start to gain some highs, I would think that would be relatively bullish in the fact that what do you call it? It would kind of confirm a bigger move,
A
possibly.
bigger move, yeah. Which is then worth as a swing trader to monitor closely,
Right.
because these things can have long runs moving upwards.
Yeah, for sure. So,
And I think the volume, like these 2 days, stands out. 5 of February and 6 of February. It seemed like that marked a little bit the bottom, but I am no expert, so I will just, like you said, if you get a clear direction of where things are going, we can start to put it on the lists, you know.
right.
Just observation. I got me interested in when I saw Coin and Circle.
Yeah, they're all in decent patterns right now. I mean, it's not like it looks anything like it's not super great, but they definitely are look kind of like they're setting up.
Yeah, just something to
Obviously
keep an eye
kind of
on, right?
choppy, but yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Um, and we'll know pretty. I mean, because like you said too, these all kind of move together. So if you get 2 or 3 of these, especially that break, I mean, that's like the whole Livermore idea. That's
Yeah.
and I remember I listened to a long podcast with is it Ariel Hernandez? Is that his name?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And he always said that he used the sector confirmation to to guarantee his trades. It probably increased his hit rate. And I mean that just makes so much sense to me. Like for instance, if you're looking at 3 or 4 stocks and they're all in the same kind of industry or whatever you want to say sector, and all 3 or 4 kind of hit that breakout point and are starting to push through their highs, I mean, what better confirmation do you need that that area is going to boom?
Yeah.
Like that
For
just
sure.
shows like money is inflowing into that sector. So um that's a huge confirmation on top of the fact of just having one trade look good.
If you're a bit lucky, then I'm not talking about finding a laggard, but if you find one that is, a little bit behind, you can, and it's setting up, but it hasn't broken out yet. You can go heavily into that one with a tight stop, I think, because it's all about adding the odds in your favor. And like you just said, when you get that kind of big confirmation, the chances also increase that that stock will also have a breakout.
Right.
But that's different than a laggard though, because
Agreed.
in general you should avoid those. I've been thinking about that because I've seen some of the laggards now late in this latest bull run, and some of them still goes up even if they are lagging behind. But I understand the point is if the leaders are crashing, what do you think will happen to the laggard? But there's definitely ways that you can. I would be interesting to do a study on it one time, like to try to find some winners among the laggers as well.
Right. No, for sure.
It's all news driven, right?
Typically.
Yeah. Yeah, I just kicked out a lot of the names that I had on my list, but the ones that survived so far is AA, which is a aluminum stock. It kind of wanted to go higher, and it dropped back down into the base, and now kind of did the same on the second breakout here. This breakout didn't happen on big volume as well, So that makes me a bit careful. I have to adjust the lines a little bit, I think, but right now it looks very messy. NVA actually survived the list, Dane. I think they do. I don't know when they have earnings. In TradingView it said 13th of March, but I don't see any reports. So I don't know. Have you
Yeah.
seen that?
No, I just when you look at it, they typically file biannually. So I think a lot of these services, because like when I look at stock charts right now, it says 316, but I don't think that's correct. I think it just like estimates on when a quarter should come out. And then once it gets like confirmation, it like locks that time in. But I think because it's biannually, it won't be until June is when they report.
Yeah.
So we had the one in December-ish, and then we won't have another one until June. These all just say it should be right now because it's technically the quarter.
Yeah.
But it's incorrect, and it's not official or anything like that. So
Yeah.
and the other thing too is as they redomicile, I'm not sure, like, number one, how long that takes, and number two, once they do, obviously, then they'll be go to a real like normal quarterly reporting because they'll be in the US and they'll have to. But in the meantime, I'm not sure how that works, how that transition works, or anything.
Yeah.
But I will say, I mean, every time I look at the news, it looks bullish. But
Yeah,
like
that's
the
why it
fact
would
that,
be very interesting to hear what they have to say on the next one.
yeah, and the other thing too is, so we had a low of 604 on March 9th, and now we had the low yesterday or on Friday of 602, which matches the same low way back in
Here,
December 31st
last day
of
of the year.
602.
Yeah.
So the only
you
other
have-
lines that are lower than that are after the initial move where it got down to about 570. So if
Yeah.
it breaks 602, I'd be really watching the 570 mark. But other than that, I mean, it's still technically holding up. So even though it does look like it's kind of bouncing downwards, it's kind of like that low flag.
Yeah.
It's not terrible.
No. And if you look at my screen now, then I have draw a pretty cool racing car. But it's by accident because actually when you see like my line, I drew it down here. And if you see every time it taps it, this stock has pretty massive moves within the base, right? This is a 88% move.
Yeah,
so-
and that's one of the things that makes me think there's some support here, because
yeah,
when it gets down to one of those, there's pretty strong buying, which makes me think then the incline that you see is just a lack of sellers. I
Yeah.
mean, that's so yeah, people sell kind of off, and then on that move, it moves up, and then the buying kind of fizzles out, and you'll see it pull back down.
yeah.
But
But
it does
but-
show that there's a really strong level of support around that $6 mark.
Yeah, and also the other side, like you can draw like a resistant line up here, right? 1145
sure.
area. So it hits its head into that and comes down again, and then the next move was like 37% roughly. And from the beginning here, these will be very hard to take, but that's a double. So right now, when it's down here again, maybe in this type of environment, look for something like this, and I don't know how you would trade it, but I do notice like here it had a gap up, here it has a gap up. So maybe if you see like a gap up day, try to take it on the intraday chart or something like that. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say on if you look the last two times it's gotten this low, the 2nd of January, it pulled up a little bit, and then, like you said, gapped up on the 5th. There's kind of like a settling day once again, 19th of February, and then the 20th, it moves kind of sideways and then starts its next move up.
Yeah.
So I would think it would do something similar. And it has that kind of like we talk about, where you see it's like pushing the ball underwater, where it gets down to that line and then pops back up. So
Yeah.
honestly, I think this is a strong stock to actually trade off the bottom if you want to try it.
Maybe
Obviously I'm not telling anyone to do that, but I don't see, based on the chart, that not working.
No, and which other chart was it that we saw that it was
Feel like I see this
oh,
on a lot of strong charts.
the Chinese chart? It was moving in a channel upwards, and every time
Not
it hit
EGH,
the
is it?
huh? No,
It's not
Tiger. It was
E
Tiger.
or EJH.
Yeah, back here. If you look here in Tiger, you know, you can draw like a line like this, probably something like this, and you
Yeah,
see
I mean,
every
Tiger was that more like stair step upwards,
yeah
but that's
upwards,
probably
right?
even stronger because it kept
Yeah,
having higher lows.
yeah.
But yes,
But the same, like these moves within the channel are massive, and if you did try to take it on based on the lows, I think you would have made some gains there, and it will be interesting to see this coming week if we get another one, because maybe a little bit of a change in character here since the last move from 20th of February, and then it goes up here on 2nd of March and just plummets down again. So I don't know. It's definitely risky, but something that made me keep it on the list.
yeah, it keeps popping up, and I've added it and taken it off, but
Yeah,
I am always kind of keeping an eye on it in the background, just because nothing's really changed in terms of the overall narrative.
yeah, true.
I think if anything, it looks strong. Um, I've heard some people, put out like a bearish statement. But honestly, I think their bearish statement's just the fact that they're like, well, why hasn't it taken off yet? And I think it's just because of you're not paying attention to the time factor. Like,
Yeah, but
we've
also
already said that the mines and stuff aren't going to be proven. There is no final report. They have to make that. I think it's the PFS or some PSF or whatever it is called, where it's the final say on what the actual mines are going to look like, what they're going to cost, what they're going to produce. It's like the final audit of the whole project.
yeah.
And once those numbers come out, if those are good, this will immediately take new highs. But until that comes, and after the redomicile, we might have a better idea of that. So I don't know if there is any kind of earnings right now, which, like I said, I don't think there is. I don't think they do it quarterly. Actually, let me put it into my
No,
fundamental sheet and just see what it says.
okay. Here it says, I didn't see it, but on TradingView, I have this column here. So 3 days ago, Nova Minerals logs HY loss attributable, I guess, Australian dollar 11.2 million. But that's very limited information here.
Right. And so I don't know what that is necessarily, but the 11.2 million, I mean, they're using cash right now to, this isn't a profitable company yet anyways. So that doesn't really mean anything, but let me see how they report. Yes, it's biannual. So it's always June 30th and then December 31st is their reporting dates. So yes, we will not get a report.
Yeah. So that's out of the risk profile then, for now at least. And like you said, though, if you do get some development on the news and that's positive, and you manage to get into it at these lows, a perfect ad place would be that the resistance line I drew earlier around 1140, right? If it pops up above that one, this one can go again, I think.
Yeah, I would agree.
So I only have 2 left. Like I've said, I didn't manage to do the screen, so probably going to be a longer list eventually. But ONDS, it survived my list here. But what a frustrating stock right now, because you have these crazy wicks on the candles, and they are all upwards, and then they come back again. So it's just like impossible to try something here, I think.
Yeah, even though it does have a nice contraction right now, I don't have, it's kind of in no man's land, until it
Yeah.
either can break past a point of resistance here.
Yeah. And it is below the 50-day moving average, and the earnings is coming up in 10 days, it says here. So, yeah, it's just on the list. I have no ambitions to take it. The last one is PL. I've tried this stock so many times. I kind of like it still here. But it's hard. What I found though, sometimes I throw on the anchored VWAP. And this one follows that anchored VWAP. For this is in terms of trying to catch a pullback buy, and it finds support on this multiple times within this base here. It did it on Thursday, and it also did it on Friday. But the general move has been down, so I don't know. Still going to be careful.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good. It's in a good contraction thing. Like you said, this also has earnings coming right up. So
yeah, and the group is in the group is hot. It's something that probably going to have a good future moving forward. I also saw the ETF UFO. Space economy. If you pull up that ETF, then it looks pretty good.
Yeah, they're all similar looking patterns.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the right one in terms of PL, but still, that whole area seems very interesting moving forward.
It's the final frontier.
Yeah. But also PL has earnings in 4 days, so this week probably gonna break down, right? Now that I've mentioned it on the stream.
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't look bad to me.
No, it doesn't look bad.
If
And
look
also, I don't really care if that happens. That's how you do the swing trading style, right? Something can change from one day to another.
Yeah.
You
No, if
you
anything,
always
I
get
think
new information.
it looks good.
Yeah.
I think it's a decent looking chart right now. I think
This is the stock I've tried most times by far in 2026, at least. Always kick me out.
I was gonna say, what was your stock last year that you had that work?
Oh, there was you. How is that one doing? Couldn't get it. So yeah, that one's breaking down a bit more. But also uranium, like we were chatting in WhatsApp, Dane. Remember about the the whole AI thing and the need for power
nuclear
to support it. Yeah. It's definitely.
Yeah, I think there's a real strong argument that the future of uranium is bright for that reason.
I agree, and what I saw, and this has recently happened, and because I've switched over to Gemini, Google's AI, and I love it so far. I think maybe ChatGPT is better in some areas, but then Gemini is better in other areas. But I pay for the pro version, and what I experienced this week, it was noticeable to me this week. So I think this is very new. But they put a cap on, even if you pay for the pro model, they put a cap on how many messages you can send it before you have to wait till a certain time for it to reset. And that cap, they have done something with it, because now I can use up the cap within 1 hour or something with my usage of it, and before it was at least the double, like 2 hours at least, so I don't know, and I am fully aware that also because I'm using it to help me code things. So when the code starts to grow, I'm fully aware that you also use up more of your tokens and all that stuff. But I don't think that's what's happening. I think they are tightening the cap a little bit, which is, I think, I don't think. I don't like it at all. Like when you pay for something and you can only use it for 1 hour before you switch back to the free models that are much worse, you know.
Right.
I'm not sure if people will love that business model. So yeah, it will be interesting to see. It's very annoying for me that I kind of have to pause my project every, you know, and wait for it to reset. It starts to question like, what's the point of paying at all?
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
And I understand
Uh,
it because of the computing power and all that stuff, like we just said about the big elephant in the room is like when they integrate this so deep into our lives and all the systems that we are dependent on and stuff like that. This will only need more power, right, to be driven
yeah.
forward, and then the costs will probably move over to the consumers, which are us, eventually. And I'm not sure if that's going to be so successful that they hope for, but I don't have a good answer to how they should solve it, because I saw Google bought like a old nuclear plant in the hope that they can control their own power moving forward.
Yeah. I honestly think we're getting to a point where traditional power supplies, especially like I know in the United States, our grid, based on the projection of where AI is going, and what the current grid supports, it's not even close. I mean, it's laughable.
Yeah,
Um, and you know, in terms of, you know, if you want to talk about clean energy, I know you can argue nuclear is not clean, but essentially it is. You almost have to go that route, either that or pray that, you know,
talk about some other options then. If you think uranium is not or nuclear power is not the cleanest, like what are the options, you know?
yeah, no,
There
there's
are
always
no.
consequences for everything you do.
Yeah,
And unless someone designs cold fusion, which at that point we're in a whole different ball game.
yeah,
Um,
but
so
we, you
until
know,
then, yeah, I think nuclear is kind of arguably the only way to go. I mean, you're talking really massive amounts of power,
yeah,
and you know, we don't have the room to just build, you know, solar fields the size of states.
and it doesn't
And
even work that well, right? There's this
no, there's
all these
so many
projects.
consequences of that.
Yeah,
Um, and then also, what do you call it? You know, like wind
yeah,
isn't. I mean, wind is
windmills,
pretty weak, to be honest, in terms of how much it generates. Um,
and it
so yeah,
doesn't,
I don't
and
know. I mean,
that's also
unless you want
not
to build
the.
1,000 dams.
Yeah, yeah, and here where I live, they try to do it in the mountains, they try to do it in the oceans. It just fails. Every project fails, and there's always like a lot of paperwork to get it done. Always someone who disagrees with it, which is good, by the way. I'm not slamming them, but it's always some issues with building out these power solutions. So what really are options? You know what I mean? I can't
Yeah,
see. I can't see nuclear. Nuclear is going to force itself on the world, I think, again, and we need to move past like thinking about how dangerous it is because something has happened in the past, because the technology and the plants are moving forward in technology and safety and all that stuff. And of course, disasters happens all the time, so it can happen again, but um, so it can do so with other projects as well, you know.
yeah. I mean, and don't quote me on this, but I was listening to something, and they basically said the design of the plants nowadays are essentially like foolproof. Like
Yeah,
the way they build them is, even if there was like a massive issue, like it's, you know, it's not going to cause like the issues that there was possibly in the past.
yeah.
They basically contain themselves regardless of it, even if there's like an issue.
Yeah.
So I just
Are,
think that's the way you have to go. I don't see any way around it. Um, Especially as the use of AI goes up. And I haven't seen that with ChatGPT. That's who I have, and I do have a paid service with them.
yeah.
Um,
No, I
so I haven't
experienced.
seen them limit me.
No, I
in any way,
experienced
but
when I had a big long code there, it started to work really slow, like really slow. And I was thinking, is that
yeah,
their
but
way of
that just
capping?
means you need to open a new chat window.
Oh yeah, I know, but is that their way of capping you? Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but all I ever do is every time if it ever gets to a point where it's if it's limiting, and I don't think it's limiting, I think it's because it's trying to reflect on the entire conversation every
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
So
that
it's not that it's not you're being capped, it's just a limitation of the way it actually is designed.
yeah,
But all I do is just say, hey, can you give me a summary and open a new chat?
yeah,
That will leave us off where we were. And every time
yeah,
I've done that, I've had no issue.
yeah. And that's what I did that as well. I was just reflecting later, like maybe that's was their way of, you know, slowing down things.
No, that's just that. I mean, maybe, but from what I
Yeah,
understand, it's not that. It's just that none of the large language models are good after so long because the conversation just kind of like it just kind of breaks down. It's
yeah,
not it's not trained to run off, like this back and forth conversation for forever.
yeah. No. Oh, and I'm learning so much. I'm trying to build like uh, an entire system with news coming into me through this AI thing that I'm building. So I'm just learning so much of everything, how everything works, and it's been some scary moments as well, where all of a sudden I pay for stuff that I thought were free. So there's definitely things that I need to be careful about. Even if I asked Gemini if this was how much this was going to cost, and it promised me it would cost like just a few bucks, and then it ends up being wrong. And the first reply it gives me when I notify it that, hey, what is going on? This cost me $100. The first reply it gave to me is that Gemini cannot be held responsible.
Yeah, no, I when you told me that, I thought that was incredible.
Yeah,
I will not allow it to charge me anything just for that
yeah,
reason alone because I
yeah,
have no idea what that thing's doing in the background. Um, and once again, I think a lot of people out there are confused. A lot of people think that the AI is some form of an intelligence. It is nothing like that. It is
no,
literally just a program. It's just
yeah,
input output. It's as simple as that in the grand scheme of everything. So this thing is trying to make a decision based on a lot of inputs. It is not going to make an intelligent decision. It might seem intelligent because it's so good at figuring out what you want it to do, but it is not intelligent. So it will not, common sense issues that you and I would just be like, well, you can't do this because this would cause a problem. It doesn't have that. So
that's the most
you always have to keep
frustrating.
that in mind when you're using these things, that these are not truly an intelligence. It's just a program. It is
Yeah,
not, it's not getting smarter. It's getting better at being programmed. So
I
I think
think the
that's a huge disconnect most people have with AI is they think this thing is thinking. It's not thinking.
yeah,
It's
no,
giving you outputs that it thinks you want.
yeah, and the key is in the key to how efficient and successful it can help you become is in the way you speak to it, because as you
Yeah,
use
so
it
the way you prompt it is everything.
yeah, the more you use it, the more you understand how you need to trigger certain things, like you just said. When the conversation gets too long, it starts to kick out its memory, because it does include like a log file, and when that it's starting to get too big, it kicks out the what it consider like the least relevant information, and it just fill it up with the most recent conversation. So at least that's how Gemini does it. So when I uploaded some documents for it, 2 weeks ago, it doesn't have access to that document anymore because it kicked it out. So I need to remind it and make it, like you said, make it sum up the conversation and kind of force it to push that information to the front of the memory document or the log that it's writing. So and then I've experienced like it's pretty helpful in terms of efficiency, and it can remember what we did, what we were thinking, what we were discussing, all the things we selected to not do, you know. And also another thing I've learned is like, if you ask it to brainstorm some ideas with you, just because from what I just said, that it kicks out the memory after a certain amount of messages, you should always save like the text somewhere, so you have it, because at some point it will not have access to it anymore. And then if you didn't note it down, those ideas that can be great, by the way, they are kicked out of the window, you know.
Right.
So it's just like an art on how to have conversations with it.
Yeah, there's an art to learning how to use it as a tool. It's the way it needs to be thought of, as it's just a tool. It is incredible what it's able to do. But at the same time, it's also very limited in the way it looks at things, and the way it's able to actually respond. And then on top of that too, you have filters that it has to be ran through. The way it's designed, Google has certain things that they put into it, so it responds in such a way.
Yeah.
So that's important to keep in mind, that it's not always going to give you actual truth either.
Yeah,
and then the other thing we've ran into with AI is the hallucinations, that when it doesn't know an answer, it has a really hard time telling you, because it's not supposed to. It's never supposed to say, I don't know. It's always supposed to give you an answer. So when it doesn't know, it makes some bullshit up. So
and you need to spot that. And usually it's easy to spot it because it's just completely wrong or doesn't make sense. But it's so hard to prompt it in a way that it stops doing these things, because it's just taught up on this massive information that you kind of have to erase from how it's acting a little bit, which is very, very hard to do.
Right.
But yeah, it's and it does it all the time, to be honest. Like sometimes I ask it to do something, and no, I didn't like that solution. We need to think broader. We need to think smarter, and it comes up with a solution that seems good, and then we start to work on it a bit, and then it turns out it's just feeding it with a very narrow focus, whereas I've told it all the time, I don't want it to be narrow and specific. I want it to be able to use its own intelligence to find me these intelligent answers, and then it just keeps going back to like things I have explicitly said that it shouldn't do, and it keep doing it and keep doing it. So that's the frustrating part.
Yeah, it is definitely still limited in use now. I think where you're going to see AI really evolve over in the future is its ability to recognize its flaws and to not go down those same patterns. I think that's really where the future of it is. I don't think it's going to become a general intelligence or anything like that. I think that's all bullshit. Yeah. But I don't know. I've done my own deep dives, and I've worked with it enough that I now just think of it as a tool. I don't think of it as, when I first saw it, I was like, oh my God, this thing's like thinking and coming up with ideas. No, it's not. It's not doing anything like that. It's just simply giving you an output based on what the expectation is.
Yeah.
So
I have to say, I question if it's like the models it comes out with are much better than previous one and all that stuff, but that also starts to flatten out a little bit. So like you say, I question if it's ever going to be in Iron Man, like the Jarvis model. That's like the ultimate thing that everyone wants here, right? But I don't think I think that's very far away, and I don't think you should look at it in that way even, because like you said, it's more to help you be more efficient in terms of finding information, I think.
Yeah, no, and don't get me wrong, I think there's going to be some incredible AI models that come out in the future where it's really going to be like a companion, essentially, in the idea that it's going to kind of almost be able to foresee what you're going to think and want to ask it, and it's going to be able to quickly be able to answer very intelligently a lot of your questions. But I still don't think it will ever have intelligence. I just don't think it works like that. It doesn't have, you know, needs, wants. It just is a program that runs and gives you an output. So it will start to seem more and more realistic, but I think it's always going to have that hollowness to it. You know, I was listening to a podcast about AI music, and I think all of us have heard some AI songs that are good. But at the same time, too, at the end of the day, if you listen to it for a while, it always kind of becomes hollow. Just there's like something missing there.
It is hollow.
And you know, the only good ones I've ever heard, I've never heard an AI song that was straight from scratch that I liked. It's always a cover that's like kind of mixed into something else and a different take on something. It's never truly an original idea.
No,
So I do think its use case is limited there as well.
Yeah.
So I just think it just goes to show you that this idea that this thing's going to be a general intelligence and that it's going to actually think, I think that's just nonsense.
Yeah. When I did my when I'm doing my project now, there's one point in the plan that I have, which came from a suggestion that Gemini made. You know, it was not me, but it said to me, like, in terms of, like you said, to make it more personal to each individual that uses it and as a companion, and that it knows you. And this quickly can get a bit scary as well. So I'm not sure if most people are comfortable doing it. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it, but it's an interesting thought. But it said, like, if you have a smartwatch, you can connect all that data it takes from your you know, heart rate and all that stuff. And I'm not sure if you should give away your like health information to one of those models, you know, but it's still an interesting idea. But then it can connect that to, for example, your trading performance, and it can give you just advice like, oh, you maybe you don't see it yourself, but you trade better if you get 8 hours of sleep versus 7, just like stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're just trying to do like a reflection on trying to squeak out some extra points, I think that's huge. I think you can do your own research and start to realize that. You know, I made 1 or 2 mistakes when I was on my vacation trading, and part of the reason why was because I was busy and I was trying to do that on top of a million other things at the same time.
Yeah.
And then after like the first 2 days, I'm like, just stop, just don't even trade.
I agree.
So I didn't take anything else. I didn't even look. I didn't really look. You know, I follow up through the day and I check at the end of the day, but I didn't do anything at the opens because I was like, you're just going to make mistakes because there's so many other things going on right now. You can't focus.
I've had the exact same experience at home where things are a bit what do you call it, like hectic. You know, I'm not really. I don't have the silence. I don't have the focus. I don't have the privacy to fully focus, and I'm doing stuff that I just immediately regret, and I just like, no, just shut off the PC, try again tomorrow, you know.
Right.
Yeah. So there's definitely something that you can you need to be on top of things to be at your best, right? Which then, if it can helps you with maybe if you get half an hour more sleep or something, it can actually shows in your performance that you wasn't aware of. That can be helpful in the long run. But then again, I'm not sure how comfortable I am giving away some health information into Gemini, you know.
Right. No, yeah, I mean, all of it's give or take because you never know what these models are doing in the background either. They could be stripping data or doing all kinds of things, and I'm sure that's in, you know, whenever you use it, I'm sure that's in the claim, you know, that it's doing these things. And you know, the other thing too is these AI models are trained, so you have to understand too. I mean, there could be a huge financial incentive from someone making this to make sure the way it's trained is to make you think in a certain way. And it's also to possibly benefit them from getting ideas from what people are putting into it, as well as controlling narratives. Like, you know, you talk about, you know, news and media and everything being biased. Well, what was if the AI you're talking to takes on that stance and is trained to make you think like they want you to think? I think that's really important to keep all that in mind. If you want to talk about something that can be dangerous, that is a simple way for something to take advantage.
This is true or not, or if it's just like people who doesn't like Sam Altman, who wants to say something about him. But I saw there was a lot of talk that one of the new updates on ChatGPT was speaking in a little bit of a same style and way that he does, you know.
Well, they all do that. Like I noticed, if you
Yeah.
look at Grok, Grok basically every time you ask it something, it always prompts you with a question at the end. It's always trying to get you to continue to respond to it. It never wants to just leave it at like a response.
Yeah.
So those are things that get put in there that are problematic, but also I understand their way of using it. And you kind of just have to realize that when you're using it, like this thing's trying to get you to respond. It doesn't always get, like I've even noticed sometimes I don't think it's giving me the perfect answer because it wants to make me follow up. It wants me to delve in more. So where it could just give me all the information on the first prompt, it does not. I have to do it over 2 or 3 prompts because it wants me to respond a few times and say like, here's this, but if you
when you think about that, then in terms of Gemini, because Gemini does the same a lot, and actually it's funny because when I try to make my own version, that's one of the things I struggle the most with, that to make it understand that it can just finish the sentence without a question, and I've been able to prompt it in that way now, so it doesn't do it anymore. But if you think about it in terms of the cap, and if the default model just gives you the question, it maybe wants you to just use up the messages, so you upgrade your subscription, right?
Possibly.
Yeah. So
well, and yeah, we're still in the beauty age of AI, because this is definitely going to become a thing. There's going to be ads, there's going to be hoops you have to jump through, there's going to be all kinds of nuances that get added in here that are going to, because it's going to have to become profitable at some point. So I hope it just stays as a paid model like how it currently is for ChatGPT, because I'm happy just to pay and have access to what I want. But we'll have to see. There's going to be, I'm sure it'll be marketed into different tiers and blah, blah, blah. And, you're going to have to just, it is what it's going to be.
It would be a nightmare if it just comes in with some stupid ad in the middle of some code that you're trying to imagine. You sitting there pretty frustrated because it doesn't work and you can't make it work. And then you see like, hey, you should buy this car.
Yeah, no, trust me. I guarantee you there's going to be ones that come out like that.
Yeah.
And that's how they're going to remain profitable essentially, or at least pay for itself.
Yeah. Or maybe like
so,
they start to make like add-ons that improve the models that you also have to pay for, and the models each promote each other. Like, hey, if you struggle with this code, you should buy this add-on. And
don't even talk about like DLCs. If that becomes a thing, I'm gonna. You want to get me to change your from ChatGPT? If you put something out like that, I will stop using it like immediately.
Yeah,
like that's just as simple as that. I'll find some weird Chinese version. I'll start going that way.
That's what I'm saying. Like you just touched
on. Let
them
steal my data.
It needs to be profitable at some point, and it's far from it right now, right? So I'm not sure, and I've seen stats on how most people they don't bother to pay for a pro model on any of them, and it's actually gone down on ChatGPT. It was the data I saw. So back to what I was saying in terms of the cap that I've experienced, Google probably tightening the cap in the recent week or so. I'm not sure if they realize that a lot of people will probably stop using it to the extent they are now if they market it wrong, if they go down the wrong path. I think a lot of people will just, no, I don't need this anymore,
Yeah, like I think you bring up a huge point, because for instance, like Google, I think is only like 10% or 15% of the usage of AI in the world currently. And a big part of that is because it's in everybody's phones, or a lot of Android users, at least. I don't know, I don't know if that's on Apple. Does Apple use Gemini?
No, it's Siri, right?
Oh, is it just their version?
Yeah, I think
So,
so.
yeah, you're gonna have kind of like a monopoly in terms of that. But at the same time, if you start to put in like restrictions too quick compared to the competitors, you're gonna
Yeah.
lose immediately, because no one's gonna use your product. You know, you kind of have to wait till everybody starts to implement this stuff,
Yeah.
and then you'll see it. Like you notice with like streaming services, you know, at first there was no ads and stuff on streaming. And then all
Yeah.
of them started to kind of do little things here and there. And then streaming and advertisements just became a thing. It's just, you know, on certain ones, if you don't pay, you're gonna get advertisements.
Yeah.
So I think you'll see the same kind of approach with AI. Is people will kind of try different things here and there, and they'll see what the general public tolerates, and then
Yeah.
they'll go from there.
It's a dangerous game though, because in terms of streaming and all that stuff here in Europe, I know there's a big thing now that a lot of people, I know it's not legal, but they turn into users of IPTV, which is like you just pay like a fraction of the cost of a yearly subscription or some sport channel or some stupid shit, and you get everything, also streaming services and everything, so a lot of the people have turned on a lot of the channels, and the broadcasters, and they are losing a lot of money. So it's people have their limits. I think you see it time and again. They just find out ways to, even if it's illegal, then they start to. I know when we grew up with Pirate Bay and all that stuff, we were kind of grown up with all that stuff.
Yeah, and that'll always exist. That market always exists. And how well they can crack down on these things, I don't know.
No.
There are gonna be AI police out there soon.
Maybe you're gonna get some versions on AI too. I remember in the early days of Spotify, you can find ways to get free accounts.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
And I think that made them change the model and realize, like, we have to make this affordable and just put all the music into this and just get everyone on it.
Yeah, and obviously that was the right model. I mean, Spotify definitely was the first one to get it kind of right.
Yeah.
And to Pandora's, because Pandora was so big for a while, at least here in the States. But the problem was Pandora didn't let you select the song choice. And when Spotify first let you do that and said, well, you just pay a small fee and we'll let you actually pick whatever you want to listen to and make your own list, it was like, it just took off. I mean, that was immediately like a game changer. And Spotify's just dominated since then. So
yeah, what was the JC thing, like Tice or something?
What was it?
No, he started like a competition to Spotify. I think he called it like Tice or something. TIS.
Oh, I don't know. I don't even remember.
No, it's just like when they start to get that foothold, like when they Spotify is standing so firm in the ground, like it's impossible to move them, so almost until something comes and disrupt the entire industry again.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's what we talk. I mean, that's the Buffett approach. You find something with a moat.
Yeah.
And honestly, in hindsight, Spotify would have been a excellent investment. As soon as you realize what they were doing and how quickly they were just dominating the competition.
Yeah.
That's just an obvious investment. I think a really smart strategy for investing is to go with that strategy is like, as you watch new companies come in, if you see them just start to dominate a market, like that's your investment right there. I don't care even really what the price is. It's most likely going to be a growth company at that point. And that's a great way to take over something.
And you could kind of see it at the time it happened also, like it spread so quickly. Everyone was talking about it. Like everyone wanted one of those accounts in Spotify,
Yeah.
So then this was all a long way to say that we think you will go up from here.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll look back at this day right now, just like we did on Spotify, and say, yeah, this was an obvious investment.
Yeah. Buy the dip here.
Always buy the dip.
Yeah, you always have to buy the dip, and especially in those
Stocks always
hanging,
go up and to the right, don't they?
always. And I think we skipped the EJH. Was that the ticker for the intro? But
Yeah.
that one
If
has
you just want to show that beautiful shirt, that's we can end on that. Maybe that's how we'll start ending the stream on a positive note.
this one has one of those Minervinis HD pattern. You know, I'm not gonna say the word because it's. I don't want to get kicked out of YouTube, but HD pattern here. We have talked about it before. This is a clear example of how you should buy a dip, right?
I mean, if you're going to short, right there.
Yeah.
I would argue when that stock gets down to, what was that, like 50 cents, where it broke through that very low from the last dip. If you want to short, man, that's where you could load on right there.
Yeah. But zoom out though. Look here. This is not the first. Look at this guy. Every time you just zoom out, it just boom, boom, boom. You can't even see these ones.
Wow, so, people continue to buy.
There's definitely
impressive that it dropped like that.
Yeah, definitely a pattern here. Look, what's going on?
It's called the carpet pull.
Yeah, and they're primarily customers are individuals. So
yeah, well, their investors are most likely individuals too.
So they have a grip on the individuals, you know. I have a feeling I have a feeling like this is something we should send value to investigate further.
Yeah, I'm sure this is a strong looking company.
Yeah. All right. It was good to be back. I think let me think a little bit, Dane. I think next weekend I will be able to, but the following weekend will be tough for me because I'm going on a holiday.
I'm actually we got to talk about this because next weekend I'm away.
Yeah. So maybe we will not stream for some weekends then, and hopefully, in terms of you know, the value and stuff, the market will just continue like it is now. So we're not missing out on so many things, and then we can talk about stuff when we come back. But yeah, might be some weeks till the next time then.
Yeah. The only thing I can think is maybe I can do a stream on like a Friday night or something like that. That might be something I could pull off. Because otherwise, yeah, there's going to be some gaps here too. I just have a lot going on weekends and stuff. And as my kids get a little bit older here, things are just changing. You know, I changed jobs not that long ago, and my wife's changing jobs, and it's for the better, don't get me wrong, but at the same time too, it just creates issues in the timing of things.
For sure.
So we're just trying to figure out where we'll be at.
Yeah, all good. I forgot what I was thinking. Yeah, never mind. We will update on Discord. Now I remember, like I don't remember if I said this in the beginning, but there's a switch in the time difference now between you and I also. So and also me for the market. So every day now I'm at work when the market opens. So it's been also a bit tricky for me to pay attention, which is also you know, it does make it easier, and that's gonna last for 2 more weeks, I think. So that's also a little bit part of why I haven't posted my daily watch lists on Discord and all that stuff. So maybe you will see the same in the next 2 weeks or something. But that this is the reason. Like it's just like a little bit of a pain in the ass right now. Everything.
Right.
Yeah. All right. All in on EGH then, and enjoy your week.
Yeah, have a good one, everybody.
Bye bye.